Well, as adults, I think there are a few really key things to kind of keep in mind. I mean, we've talked a lot about the emotional aspects, et cetera, but physically, what you need to know is none of us want to end up in the situation where we're metabolically doing the thing that happens in our age group, in the middle age group, which is, hey, I'm trying to do all the right things. I'm trying to get some movement. I am trying to eat the right things. And the pounds just keep pounding, right? So it literally disrupts our metabolism in a really negative way. If you think about it, our hunger hormones get dysregulated. So our gremlin hormone, the ghrelin, that tends to kind of start wreaking havoc, and it's going to cause us to maybe want to reach for foods when we're sleep deprived that aren't best or healthiest for us. They're often very sugar laden. Our leptin's going to go down, so we're not going to be able to regulate our appetite as much. We're not going to be as physically active because we're tired. So our ability to kind of move around is going to decrease.
Welcome, everybody, back to the Sean Trey Show. I have an awesome guest with me today. And would you like to tell people who you are and a little bit about what you do?
Sure. I'm Dr. Alison Kole. I am a triple boarded pulmonary critical care and sleep medicine specialist. I've been practicing for about 20 years. And for the past 3 years, I've been focusing exclusively on sleep medicine. I happen to be the creator and host of the Sleep is My Waking Passion podcast. And my podcast is really geared toward providing as much evidence-based sleep education to everyone that I can. There's a lot of weird stuff on the internet, and I'm trying to synthesize it and organize it in a way that actually makes sense to the doctor brain. And I actually think that's an underrated skill. So That's why I'm here to talk to you.
That's awesome. It is awesome because especially the internet is where a lot of people go for information. And it is filled with great information, but a lot of misinformation.
Exactly.
I was watching this video yesterday, and this guy's like, I had this diagnosis of this health challenge, and I started putting this thing, at the top of my mouth every day, and I am fixed. And it's like a person who's desperate or needing more sleep or wanting to treat a different health condition might watch these things and go, does that work? And it's great that you're filtering out the misinformation because, there's always new information out there, but how do people know it's real or it works?
This is what I like to say. You can glean information, and I know you're going to go on Google and you're going to use your AI chat searches and all of that good stuff to find out more information. But that's not really a strategy, right? So by actually seeking the help of a professional, there's a reason that we learn and train for so many years, and that's so that we can process and filter responsibly the good information and help you steer yourself toward this is a bunch of voodoo and this actually has evidence and where you need to land. Again, providing you with that strategy that you so desperately need.
I love that. And it's interesting too, because there was a couple years ago, people would joke about, as people would start going and searching and finding something was horribly wrong with them. Yesterday, my wife came up and she's a singer and she's like, oh, I've got this condition. And I was like, oh no, oh no. And we went to the doctor and she very much did not. But, she was able to, again, go to a person who gave her a plan to treat what was actually going on. And there wasn't a illness per se for her, but she had what we call misalignment. Things were not working optimally for her as a singer because she was not doing things in a way that was conducive to her overall wellness. And when we spoke with an expert, we were able to get that plan so that she could be successful. And whether it be sleep, whether it be some other thing, having that plan is so powerful.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you this question. Why is sleep one of the most important pillars of our adult health?
It's one of the most important pillars because quite literally, we cannot survive without sleep. It is a biologic necessity. Why is it a biologic necessity? When we take a look, if sleep is universal, all humans must sleep.
Yeah.
And when we look at one of the things in medicine is we tend to organize everything by organ systems. You have your cardiovascular system, your pulmonary system, your GI system, et cetera, right? The thing is with sleep is that it impacts every single organ system you could possibly imagine. And the biggies that keep us on the planet longer are things like making sure that our hearts remain healthy. And when we don't get enough sleep, or we get poor quality sleep, or maybe we have low oxygen at night for various reasons, including obstructive sleep apnea, which is a type of sleep disorder, what we end up with is potential damage to our hearts. But it's a
Mm,
bi-directional relationship, meaning, what affects our heart, or how our sleep affects our heart. If you look at it, if you're somebody who already has a bad heart or a weak heart, guess what? They don't sleep as well. And there's a
mm,
reason for that. It's because their heart's not functioning well. Take another organ system, your immune system. One of the things we know, I'm going to use the COVID vaccine as potentially controversial as that is, but when you look at folks that had the COVID vaccine and you look at their sleep, it's the ones that were sleep deprived that had a less of an immune response to the vaccine. So it's
mm.
showing us, and again, Sean, if I took you and I was like, you're going to be sleep deprived for a week or two, are you likely to probably come down with some little virus or something that's going to make you feel under the weather? That's typically when it happens, when we're overworking ourselves and we're sort of sleep deprived, right? There's a reason for that. Um, it, there's a host of things that are really important about sleep, including our brain health and, kind of mitigating the risk of getting neurodegeneration, dementia, for example. So we're seeing all this interrelationship between basically every organ system in our body kind of responding to sleep in a positive way.
I was doing a master's program a couple years ago, and the classes were in the middle of the night for me. And I was like, well, you know what? I'll do it for, it was 2 nights a week. And I was like, I'll just pop awake and then I'll rest during the day. It, I had to drop the classes. I was 2 weeks in and I was getting all these colds, all these things. And I just was like, can't do this. I can't wake up at 2 a.m. and study till 4. And for a second, I was like, it's just, just a couple hours. It's just but no, it was devastating to my health. And I very quickly was able to correct that. But some people, whether it be waking up super early for something or just staying up too late on their phone, might not be aware of the damage they're doing. And I noticed for me that I make horrible decisions when I'm not sleeping enough, and
Oh, yeah.
which means like how does sleep affect our memory and learning and our decision making? Because that seems like something that I've experienced.
Well, I think a good way to think about it is sort of breaking it down into categories. So, one way let's talk about the sleep deprived pain for whatever cause that is, either be it self-inflicted or insomnia or some other sleep disorder, etc. When you think about it, when you are not sleeping, right off the bat, our ability to take in information, remember it accurately, and be able to process it immediately goes down. So if you look at how it affects us even before we start learning something, it kind of puts us at a disadvantage for even acquiring new information. And then after you learn something, whatever it may be, well, how do we remember it, right?
Yeah.
And what's really happening there is then you have to get into the deeper layers of sleep. So we typically have non-rapid eye movement sleep and rapid eye movement sleep, non-REM and REM for short. And in non-rapid eye movement sleep, one of the most important stages, there are 3 stages. You have your really light sleep just when you fell asleep. Then you have stage 2, and then you have delta wave or deep sleep. A lot of stuff happens during deep sleep. And part of our ability to start to remember things is that we're filing those memories into the deeper layers of our brain during deep sleep. And then when we hit rapid eye movement sleep, what we're doing is we're sort of saying, okay, was there some emotion attached to that memory? And how do I kind of regulate my emotions and have that emotional download and that, emotional memory that we often associate with things that we're learning? Because they, often kind of, if you think about it, the stuff we remember the most is typically
Hmm.
stuff that had some impression on us, right?
Yeah.
Some emotion was triggered by that for sure. And then The last part you alluded to, which I love, which is talking about what happens with decision making. Because you can do all these other things that are kind of happening in the background, your brain's automatically doing it. But when you have that sleep deprived brain, there is
Yeah.
a part of our brain up here in the front, the prefrontal cortex. And this is sort of like the CEO, if you will. It's responsible for all of our executive functioning. In other words, really important stuff like making judgments, controlling impulses, being able to strategically plan in a positive way. And if we're not getting good, consistent and healthy sleep, all of that becomes further away. And you don't even have
Mm,
to be an expert to realize that. You said it yourself. You know that your
yeah.
decision making goes to poop when that
Yeah.
happens, right? And you can imagine, by the way, as a person who's been in medical training for so many years and now out of it, I trained back in the old school days.
Mm,
Sleep was not a priority. So you
yeah.
got a bunch of sleep deprived people running around, basically having people's lives in their hands.
Hmm.
It's nuts, but that's how we were trained to be tough and to get through it. Um, I honestly think I'd be smarter if I kind of prioritized my sleep back then, but it was not okay to do so. Wasn't even talked about in the medical world. We're now much more protective of people's sleep, which is a really nice thing to see that evolution.
It's huge. And one of the things too I noticed is in that time when I was trying to do that master's program before I switched my classes to a different time slot, I was noticing like there was the emotional regulation and as well that was just out the window. I was getting grumpy with everyone.
Hmm.
And, I like to, the other day, I rescheduled the podcast. And it was because I was sitting there and I felt like I was coming down with something. And I wanted to be able to be at the top of my game. And yet, so many of us walk through our days compromised to the ability to be where we can be. And I mean, think about that, um, it could be something as simple as snapping at a coworker, but what if the person that you're snapping at is a family member or someone that, you really wouldn't like to be doing that? And just the mental health side of, sometimes I got really down. I deal with anxiety at times, and my anxiety went through the roof during that time period, which was probably one of the core reasons that I said, yeah, I can't keep doing this because yeah, it's challenging. How does sleep affect those levels of emotional regulation and mental health as well?
It is that you cannot separate sleep from any of the above.
Yeah.
It's that simple. Uh, I'm going to share with you my experience briefly, which is what led to us even having this conversation was profound sleep deprivation, which is the
Mm,
result of significant, what they call circadian misalignment. Basically, I went from having a very difficult schedule and feeling really on that edge of burnout to a pandemic as an
mm,
ICU doctor and being thrust now with two kids in my 40s into a world of overnight shifts.
mm,
Mama could do it at 25 when she was single and had little responsibility. But when you're, 15 years into your career and you're now being forced to do that, I simply do not have a very flexible circadian rhythm. I need to be waking up every day at the same time. I need to really have a specific wind down routine. It's just who I am. And I'm okay with it, but it's just that I'm not a night shift person. And what
yeah.
I experienced changed my life so profoundly that it's one of the reasons that all I do is talk about sleep because it was exactly as you can imagine. Not only was I not sleeping, I really did not like the person I was becoming. And what made it even kind of like the salt in the wound, if you will, is I really felt that there were people in positions of authority or power within the organizational structure that I was once a part of that could have intervened and made my sleep and my sanity a priority.
Right.
And they chose an old school, no, we were tough in medical school attitude. And it really shaped my desire to really change the dialogue around sleep. The bottom line is that again, I mentioned the prefrontal cortex. We talked about how that helps with our decision making and our emotional regulation. There's also a part of our brain called the amygdala. And a lot of people know this because when we get in a situation that kind of causes our fight or flight response, our cortisol peak to get in there, what's happening is that amygdala is going to start to fire. And I found myself intolerant of, in medicine especially, we deal with very challenging coworkers. And I'm sure it's like that in whatever field, right? There's always like a bad egg that tortures you somehow in your workplace. And I found myself really unable to have empathy for that person and to hold space for that person. I just didn't like how even patient care, I lost the joy.
Yeah.
You really are not processing your emotions well. You don't handle that. The amygdala is not responding in a normal fashion. So really just essentially, again, your brain and how it fires and how important sleep is to its overall health.
Yeah.
Our emotions are regulated. Yeah, if you want to get metaphysical, you can talk about all the different chakras and all of that. But at the end of the day, up here in our head is where a lot of those emotional processing centers are, and they can't function if we don't sleep.
Yeah. It's so powerful, man, because it's like, I see it. We have our whole world is built up around like performance and getting things done, but that often comes at a compromise, even for kids. I was thinking about this the other day. We have school schedules that match parents' work schedules, and yet my daughter, like here I am waking her up at 5:30 so that
She used
because
to get up 5:30 a.m.?
5:45 so she can get to school on time. They have them getting up so early at her school, and they have to be there at 7. And so if we're going to get food, if we're going to get the drive done, and I sit there and think about why are these kids forced to get there so early, and it's interesting because and that's just younger kids, but you even think about through medical school, through college. I remember the all-nighter was something that people would talk about. We're going to do an all-nighter tonight because our professor assigned this assignment that needed to be done in 2 days and could have been something that was assigned 2 weeks ago. And I mean, hopefully this is changing. And I think it is in education, but the all-nighter was this badge of honor, but really it just wasn't good for you. And I wonder, what are some of the physical consequences of this sleep deprivation that people are getting?
Well, as adults, I think there are a few really key things to kind of keep in mind. I mean, we've talked a lot about the emotional aspects, et cetera, but physically, what you need to know is none of us want to end up in the situation where we're metabolically doing the thing that happens in our age group, in the middle age group, which is, hey, I'm trying to do all the right things. I'm trying to get some movement. I am trying to eat the right things. And the pounds just keep pounding, right? So it literally disrupts our metabolism in a really negative way. If you think about it, our hunger hormones get dysregulated. So our gremlin hormone, the ghrelin, that tends to kind of start wreaking havoc, and it's going to cause us to maybe want to reach for foods when we're sleep deprived that aren't best or healthiest for us. They're often very sugar laden.
Yeah.
Our leptin's going to go down, so we're not going to be able to regulate our appetite as much. We're not going to be as physically active because we're tired. So our ability to kind of move around is going to decrease. We're just not going to want to. We're going to sit around more as a result when we're tired. It happens with everybody. We also are at increased risk for, again, making poor food choices, weight gain. That can lead us to develop diabetes.
Yeah.
It can lead us to develop hypertension. There is some data that suggests that accelerated coronary artery disease is possible, especially if you have untreated sleep disorders contributing to that. And then there's the potential with sleep deprivation, and this literature has been, it's been something that's been talked about, particularly with night shift workers, potentially an increased risk of cancer. Why would that be? Because our immune system again,
Yeah.
has all these different types of cells that help us fight things. And there's these natural killer cells that are able, and, researchers are saying, literally, we're making cancer cells, and then our immune system's going, nope, you're a bad cell. You got to come out of commission. I'm going to
Yeah.
come and get you. You can't do that if your immune system's not functioning on all cylinders. So it can have some potential really serious downstream effects. I think it's difficult to prove causation for everything, but these associations are so strong, it's sort of difficult to poo-poo them.
Yeah. You mentioned night shift workers, and one of the things years ago, I worked with a gentleman who was a super nice guy, and he moved down to LA when I was living in LA. He moved down to LA to get into the the VFX industry. And so when he moved into LA, he had this really interesting job. He wanted to be an animator, but when you get into the industry, you kind of get the job that you get. And he was the data wrangler, the overnight data wrangler. And so what he did was he worked there while the animators had been working all day and doing all of their stuff. At night, they turned the computer on to back up. And they let everything that they had done that day back up to the company's major data center. And so that the next day when people came in, they would start fresh. Everything had been backed up and the computers had rested and gotten everything clean for them. Now, he came down and he was like, yeah, I'm going to be working nights. And it was, just this thing. We're like, yeah, sure. It seems like a great guy, great roommate. Watching him, like, his health deteriorate, watching his personality change was dramatic. He was this nice, sweet, chill guy. A month in, he was a raging monster to live with. He was coming out, he was screaming at everyone, any noise in the house, and we would have to tiptoe around. And finally, all of us decided not to live together anymore. And we all got different places because it was a nightmare. Like, the dogs are walking down the hallway and he would flip out. And he then finally came to the realization, he's like, I can't keep doing this. He got a new job. And again, it was a 180. He became that other guy again. And he was like, he was pushing through the fatigue, but he wasn't aware of those hidden consequences that were coming towards him, and they were powerful and they were big. And he's like, I don't like the trajectory. So he decided to make a change.
He went to a day shift job, didn't he?
Yeah, of course. 100%.
And so you're actually bringing up a really interesting point, which I like to emphasize, which is shift work can look different for different people. So what I'm alluding to is the majority of us are sort of in this intermediate range where, the typical 9 to 5 kind of works for us, basically. Okay.
Yeah.
Then you have people that are like that 5 a.m. club. They're up early. They're
Yes.
like the morning people, right? I do envy them because I'm not really that much of a morning person. And then you have the night owls that love to be up late and sleep in late, right? We're all kind of built a little differently. And so he did the best thing he could do for himself, which is get a job that was more aligned with his natural circadian rhythm.
Yeah.
The flip side is, what if you had a job where you had to be somewhere at 6 o'clock in the morning and you're a night owl, right?
Yeah.
That's still shift work. It's just shift work that looks a little different because your circadian biology is a little different. So I like to, when I talk about shift work, just kind of highlight that because I think it gets us thinking about it differently. Like, oh, that's just a night shift problem. Well, maybe not. It just depends.
Yeah. I love that. And it's different because I noticed this for myself when you start talking about that, because I am more, I love the night. I am a night owl. I would love to stay up late doing things, but I can't because I have to wake up at 6 every day or 5:45 to get my daughter to school. 5:45 is when I set the alarm, but normally it's a 6 by the time we're up and going. So it's thrown off my sleep, and what I notice is that I feel tired even when I feel like I'm getting the correct number of hours, but I feel like maybe my shift is not matching. But my question is why do so many adults feel tired even when they think they're getting enough sleep?
Well, that is a great question because it gets into like what exactly is quote good sleep, right?
I love that.
A lot of the stuff that we've heard of that's really mainstream is so you need to get your 8 hours of sleep. Well, really, technically, it's kind of like 7 to 9 for the majority of us,
Yeah.
with some of us inheriting some genetics. Rare, but it does occur where they're more of the 6 hour sleeper, right? So some people are genetically kind of shorter sleepers than others. There's the hours, but what the newest literature is suggesting is that that may be less important to our overall health. It's not that it's not important, but probably less important to our overall health than a couple of other things. One being if we can kind of align ourselves to a routine that kind of aligns as much as we can with our circadian health. And that focuses on consistency. Like if you want to try to have a relatively stable bedtime, and one of the things, especially if you struggle with sleep like me, is the wake up time. I really
Yeah.
am quite religious about a wake up time that starts every day, 7 days a week at a certain time, just because there are ways for us to train ourselves, especially when we're raising kids, even if we tend to be night owls, that would allow us to be able to keep more consistency with our schedule throughout the day. So that's really important. And then the third thing that's really important to keep in mind too is what kind of quality sleep are you getting? If you're really feeling super tired and you know that you're at least in your mind, maybe you're using an Apple Watch or one of these other gadgets that's kind of tracking your sleep as well, and you kind of know, hey, I'm getting like a solid 8 as far as I can tell or close to it. Why do I feel so tired? There may be simple things, but I would encourage you, especially as adults, that is the time to make that appointment with a sleep specialist and dig a little deeper. You might have a sleep disorder. You might have restless legs. That's another type of sleep disorder, but more in the movement category. We might see a lot of sleep fragmentation. Why is that? Is a medication contributing to your sleep kind of causing you to feel more tired? Are there other lifestyle factors that we can tweak to improve that? But you really want to make sure that there's not like some underlying medical reason for you to feel that fatigued.
I love that for a couple reasons. First of all, I have one big thing that causes me to not sleep well, and I'm holding it in my hand right now. I think that one of the things modern smartphones have become an absolute gift that we have all of this stuff in one place. And I mean, I used to have a little alarm clock right next to my bed, but now you keep your phone there. And that dopamine response that we get from picking that phone up is so intense, and but also the anxiety that comes with it. I have a business that I work with clients in the US. And so when we will work and get their videos edited all of our day, and then we'll send everything out for all my clients to review. But they're leaving all those review notes all night. And I then wake up and I'll be like, oh, I wonder if something important came through. And it just causes me to feel restless. And what I've had to do is put my phone across the room. Because if it's next to me, the desire, I don't know if it's a desire or the urge to pick it up and just check it is so strong. Or we're not even getting into short form content that people are just, that is extremely entertaining, and I would say borderline addictive to people.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you're just sitting there and you want that. I've had to put my phone across the room and still keeping it as an alarm clock, but I'm tempted to go back old school and get something that I can wind up and put on in the room.
So this is hilarious because we're having this conversation, you being located in Vietnam and me here in New Jersey. And before we were taping, I actually had another podcast episode for my show. And I was talking to this gentleman, Justin. Hi. He's a lovely dude. He wrote this book. He's not a medical professional anyway, but he wrote a book called Stress Nation. And I just spent like an hour talking about technology. What's interesting is I don't have the philosophy of remove the phone completely from the bedroom. But again, I have learned over time to be able to resist it. But Justin was like, oh, I remove technology entirely. And that might be an ultimate solution for you. That might
Mhm.
work better for you. Like, I don't feel like that would be something I really need to do, so I don't. Maybe I should, I don't know. But I love that idea for you, especially since you're so tempted by it, to go old school. One
Yeah.
of the things I have that I think is a really neat alarm clock, by the way, and no, this is not sponsored. I just happen to like this alarm clock. I have this Hatch alarm clock that you can set on your phone to start a gentle rise, which
Oh,
is like a artificial sun, and I have it where I can hear birds chirping and that sort of thing. I love that
I'm getting that. I'm getting that.
thing. Check it out. It's great. It really is.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, let me ask you this next one. You touched on this earlier with
Mhm.
weight gain and some diabetes and stuff, but I've always thought about that, like how because my roommate that I had that was the overnighter, that was working those overnighters. He when he came in was a healthy, fit guy, but after 5 months, man, he got really, really, really big. And he was
Yep.
complaining about it constantly. And he's like, I don't know. I'm going to the gym. I'm eating the same. But his metabolism was all off, and the weight and the energy all off. How does sleep affect those? Like, what is that mechanism?
Well, you again, I touch base a little bit on the hunger hormones, which may make you make poorer food choices. But one of the other things that happens when you're not sleeping very well is that you have a stress response, right? And so you
Mm,
tend to have this higher kind of cortisol level because your body's all like, oh my god, what are you doing to me? I need rest and you're not letting me get the rest. And then that in turn can actually lead to things like insulin resistance. So then it causes
mm,
downstream effects on our other hormones. The other thing that happens when we're in like this chronic stress mode is that we start to want to hang on to calories because we're
mm.
like, wait a minute, my fight or flight response is like hitting pretty hard. I might need to run from that imaginary bear, aka my job, and so now I've got to hang on to fat because of that, right? I can't
Yeah,
lose. I might need this extra energy because I need to go escape. The our biology hasn't really changed, though technology and all the things that used to scare us when we were cave people doesn't exist anymore. And then again, you have that energy expenditure issue, which is, your body actually, especially when you're not getting enough sleep, which is very common in shift work, your body wants to conserve energy. It's thinking that it has to respond to a threat, right? That's what's going
yeah,
on internally. So it's just decreasing the amount of energy you actually use. So you may have the same calories, but that you're consuming, even if you are able to maintain a healthy diet, but yet you're not able to really kind of utilize them as effectively. Your
yeah.
body's just basically crying out for sleep.
It really does. And this is the thing too. Like I noticed, one of the things you touched on that I really as well was noticing is, um, I just the other day I got a massage before bed, and I just had the deepest sleep, and
Mm.
I had all of these wonderful dreams, and I just was like, well, I haven't been dreaming. I haven't been having any like dreams lately, and I was just sitting there thinking like, you know, there is a quality of sleep that I was assuming that I probably wasn't getting to that deeper level of sleep. I just was kind of getting much more shallow sleep. And it led me to wonder, like, why is this higher quality sleep is it more important to sleep longer or to have a deeper sleep? Like, which one is it? What defines good sleep? What is more important?
Well, I don't know that we can separate the exact importance, right? But
Mm,
the most recent literature, as I alluded to earlier, is really that the hours are probably maybe a little bit less important than the consistency per se. But
mm,
then there are things that sometimes we do inadvertently that kind of muck up our own sleep quality. Like if you're going to have that cappuccino after your evening dinner, that
right.
might muck up your sleep. Again, if you're out to dinner, you're having, hanging out with friends, especially in our age group, it's very normal for us. And I know we're more and more data is coming out that says alcohol is no bueno. But the bottom line is like cocktails have been in my life and they're probably not leaving my life. Um, I know though and I've noticed a change even from when I was younger. Maybe I just notice it more now. My sleep is not good if I have a couple cocktails.
Yeah.
And there's a good reason for that. What's happening is you're sort of peaking your alcohol levels, right? Getting drunk, basically. And then when we fall asleep, because we do get sleepy often after a couple drinks, we go into this deep sleep, and we do actually have quite a bit of deep sleep when that happens. But as we metabolize out the alcohol, what's then occurring is we're having almost like this REM rebound, because the architecture
Mm,
of our sleep changes. So we're no longer going in and out of non-REM and REM sleep in a normal fashion. So then we tend to have kind of like light sleep with some REM, and it's fragmented. And then we wake up and we go, ugh, that was like the worst night ever. That's but one example. So all of it kind of matters. But if you're noticing that your quality of sleep is consistently bad,
yeah.
looking at yourself and saying, why is it consistently bad? And if you have no logical explanation, just make sure there's not a sleep disorder or medical disorder that's contributing to that. In your particular case, I think kind of gets back to one of the things we were alluding to earlier was stress.
Yeah.
I think you're relaxed after that massage because you
100%.
allowed yourself to kind of de-stress, right? That's why we go and get massages. And so that becomes, I think, a tool for you to go, hey, maybe I need to have more de-stress type of events in my life, things that keep me happy so that I can reduce my overall stress. If it's in your ability and your financial means to get more massages, wouldn't we all like to go for a regular massage? I'm like, I would
Right.
like to be rich just so I can have more regular massages. Um,
Right.
but for the rest of us, are there other techniques and stuff that we can do to help kind of de-stress so that we can approach the end of our day not feeling overwhelmed and then expecting our brains just to shut off like that? Because that's just not how we work. We need like a little, we all need a little decompression.
Yeah. 100%. Well, one of the things I notice is, and then one of the reasons I've been trying to prioritize sleep and de-stressing, because they go hand in hand for me,
Yep.
is that I'm a better husband, I'm a better father, I'm a better boss, I'm a better friend, because it seems to me that, all of those things are really, really, really tied to how much sleep I get. I can't go out and lead a great team if I'm falling asleep. I can't go out and listen in a deep way to my daughter or my wife when I'm not sleeping well. How does the sleep make us, I don't know, more present, better people?
I'm thinking of a great way to answer this. And I don't know that it's going to be all that unique or special, but I'll just
Mm,
say that at the end of the day, when we all reflect, a well rested mind is just a more capable mind. That
yeah,
means all aspects of how our brain and how our social abilities, our abilities to process emotion, to be mentally present in the moment and enjoy that connection with others. It's very difficult to do when you're sleep deprived. It's like
100%.
those areas of your brain just don't fire on all cylinders no matter what it is. So yeah, you're going to be a better boss and a better leader because you're calm. You can handle pressure without having your amygdala go nuts because you haven't slept. You're not going to rip someone's head off because they are not in a good frame or didn't do good work. You're going to sit there
Yeah,
and go, I know you. Why are you not delivering? Is there something else that's going on that I can help you? Right? That's what a good leader does. They are calm in chaos. We can't be that when we're tired. We also
yeah,
just are nicer people. I mean, I gave you the example of how I didn't like who I was becoming. I know that I'm not this person that's going to rip everybody's head off if they're not doing everything to a T. But I became that person over time. And I was like, ew, I don't need to be this way. I don't want to be this way. But I'm living a life that is, contributing to me not evolving as a human the way I want to evolve as a human.
yeah,
So I see it as just, it is so important for us. And again, I'm just going back to that conversation I just had with Justin earlier before we were talking. Relationships, having fun, playing, these are some really key features to helping us de-stress, helping us sleep better. And conversely, when we sleep better, we can show up and have that more meaningful connection. What I didn't share with him, and I'll share with you, is that one of the missed opportunities, which allows me to do what I do today and really work hard not to miss that opportunity, is during COVID, when I was doing endless ICU shifts or what felt like endless ICU shifts, I feel like I missed my girls' toddlerhoods, basically. I
Mm.
don't feel like I was truly, truly present. And I look at these videos and these pictures that we took over that time, and it's weird because my brain doesn't process it the same way as my brain processes our experiences together now. And it was all
Hmm.
because I wasn't sleeping. I mean,
Yeah.
if you don't sleep, you miss out on the joy of living. We only have this human experience once. It's like a miracle that any of us are sitting here. It's like millions of sperm and millions of eggs out there. And somehow these two came together and they made Sean and they made Allison. And now we're
Yeah.
having a wicked cool conversation about it.
If you could give the people listening one piece of advice to go out and have better sleep tonight, what would you give them?
My piece of advice would be don't obsess over your sleep. The more you try to reach for it, the further away it gets. You
Yeah.
got to play a little mind game with yourself. Do the things that allow you to not feel stressed, that allow you to be able to fully relax. That might mean having meaningful connection with your family, putting away the work. Don't work until you're right before you got to go to bed. Have a very simple wind down routine that just lets you decompress. Give yourself that grace, and the rest will follow. And nights of bad sleep are normal. That does
Yeah.
not a chronic insomnia situation make. There you go. That's my
I love it.
advice.
Cool. I want to think, where can people go and find out more information about you and your podcast and all that good stuff?
Sure. Well, I have a very active YouTube channel. I'm very proud of this channel. I now have a team helping me as just a random doctor who knew nothing about podcasting. I've come a long way since May of 2023. So if you go to my YouTube channel, I also post on TikTok and Instagram, and I'm very active on LinkedIn. My handle is at ask, A-S-K, ask the Sleep MD. And you can go to askthesleepmd.com. I have an entire website. I have a Substack called Diary of a Sleep Doctor, where I have both free and paid articles that really try to not give you the fluff that you're going to read in every news media outlet or every generic, sleep advice column. It's really kind of getting into the meat and potatoes and giving you a deeper layer of stuff. So I'd encourage you to sign up if you're interested.